The silence inside Station Vega 7 was absolute at this hour, broken only by the distant hum of power cores beneath the metal flooring. Cale Mercer sat alone in the biothermal calibration room, eyes fixed on the flickering data feeds hovering above the console. The cold crept in despite environmental controls, a bone-deep chill that never quite left this part of orbit around Glacialis 9. He adjusted his gloves, though he did not need them. His hands ran hotter than the station's tolerances could safely regulate, a consequence of Project Pyre, one the brass never fully explained before it burned his life apart. He was told he would help terraform ice planets. Instead, he became something between a man and a furnace. The incoming shuttle rattled the walls as it docked. Kyle barely turned his head. Another alien delegation, more wasted time and diplomacy. He had no reason to care, until the moment the alarms blared. Containment breach in Lab 3. Biofield failure. One lifeform compromised. Cale was already moving before the announcement ended. His boots slammed against the floor as he sprinted down the corridor, dodging startled techs and confused researchers. The icy glow of the lab door reflected the crimson of emergency lights. A pair of medics tried the panel, but the system refused to respond. He pushed past them, overriding the security lock with his clearance. As the door hissed open, a wave of sub-zero air surged outward like a living wall. Inside, the temperature had dropped dangerously fast. A figure knelt motionless on the floor, her silhouette fragile, shimmering with frost. She was alien, unmistakably. Slender, ethereal in form, skin like pale crystal threaded with faint blue veins. Hair fell like silver silk over her shoulders, unmoving in the frigid air. Her breath, shallow and quick, misted in the cold. The Velari emissary. Kyle had skimmed the report, but forgotten her name. She was dying. Without thinking, he crossed the room and knelt beside her. His fingers reached for her exposed forearm, a patch of delicate skin spiderwebbed with cracking frost. The moment his skin met hers, the reaction was instantaneous. The frost evaporated in a breath. Color returned to her skin, faint but visible, the bluish tones deepening toward lavender. Her eyes flew open, silver irises surrounded by translucent white, glowing faintly as they locked onto him. She flinched, trying to pull away, but her body betrayed her. He tightened his grip, not in force but in focus. The warmth flowing from his palm into her arm felt like a pulse, alive and rhythmic, as if their cells were exchanging more than just temperature. "You're stabilizing," he muttered, half to himself. "That shouldn't be possible." She spoke then, her voice brittle and barely audible. "Do not stop." Her accent was fluid, melodic, but strained. Her body, though fragile-looking, trembled with an unfamiliar energy. Kyle adjusted his other hand to her shoulder, watching in astonishment as the spreading frost receded beneath his touch. Footsteps echoed behind him. A team of researchers entered, led by Dr. Jensen, eyes wide with disbelief. "Is that a regenerative reaction?" she asked breathlessly. Kyle did not answer. The alien's breathing steadied, the tightness around her eyes fading. She shifted, slightly, placing one hand over his. "You," she whispered, looking up at him. "What are you?" "I should ask you the same," he replied. "Virea," she said slowly. "Of the Velari." Her eyes did not leave his face. "My people are born in cold, shaped by it. But now the cold turns on us, and you, your warmth, it does not burn. It balances." He swallowed, the air between them charged. Around them, monitors began to ping with irregular data. Jensen reached for her tablet, muttering about thermal harmonics and biofield synchronization. None of it mattered. To Kyle. Only the woman beneath his hands, still recovering, still touching him with a trust that unsettled him more than he could explain. Virea closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. You are the first warmth that hasn't killed me. Kyle looked down at her, something flickering in his chest. Not duty, not guilt, recognition. And for the first time in 5 years, the fire in his blood did not feel like a curse. It felt like purpose. Kyle stood just inside the threshold of Isolation Chamber 6, arms crossed, jaw tight. The door sealed behind him with a muted hiss, leaving only the dim light and quiet hum of environmental systems. The air had been adjusted for Valari tolerances, several degrees colder than any human found comfortable. He exhaled slowly, letting his breath fog in front of his face. Across the room, Viraya sat on the edge of the diagnostics bed, her posture rigid, skin faintly glowing with residual energy from their earlier contact. The lines of frost damage on her arms had faded to soft lavender, though pale cracks still traced her collarbone and neck like fading veins of crystal. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. They said I would die if we didn't share. Contact, she murmured. Cale didn't flinch. That matches what I was told. They also said you're dangerous, she added, her voice quieter this time. That you radiate uncontrolled energy levels. He took a step closer, glancing at the small thermal scanner clipped to the table beside her. They're not wrong. Her eyes narrowed. You stabilized me. Nothing about that felt dangerous. Kyle lowered himself into the chair across from her. The cold pressed against his skin through his clothes, yet the longer he remained near her, the less he noticed it. The scanners on his wrist beeped softly, tracking his pulse and internal temperature. You know your biology better than I do, he said, holding her gaze. Can you explain how my contact reversed your cell damage? She shook her head slowly, strands of silver hair brushing her cheeks. Our bodies are designed to absorb cold, light, heat, even minimal warmth damages us. But your energy didn't destroy. It redirected. It felt like my cells were being reminded how to function. Cale let the words settle between them. We're scheduled for monitored contact sessions every 4 hours, he said. Duration, 30 minutes. Direct skin exposure only. Under observation. Viraya looked away, her jaw tightening. So, I am to be studied. Like an experiment. We both are, Kyle replied. But I think they're scared. They don't understand what happened between us, and that always makes Command nervous. He reached out, hesitated, then gently touched the back of her hand. Her fingers twitched beneath his, but she didn't pull away. The effect was immediate. Frosted. Skin softened, the dullness fading from the edge of her palm as if life itself returned to her tissue. Her breathing deepened. That feeling again. It's like standing in the sunrise after living in darkness. Cale didn't know how to respond to that. He watched the monitor display spike in correlation to their contact. The data didn't lie. Something was happening. At the cellular level, something neither of their species had seen before. I can feel your heartbeat, she said suddenly, his brow furrowed. Through your hand, she added. It's faster now. Cale leaned back slightly, letting go, though the tingling warmth lingered on his skin. We're being monitored. Probably shouldn't give them more to speculate about. Her silver eyes met his again. You are afraid of what they will do if they learn too much. He didn't deny it. I've been in labs before. Once they think you're valuable, you stop being a person. Viraya stood and walked slowly toward the center of the room, her bare feet silent against the metallic floor. The icy light caught the smooth planes of her skin, revealing the delicate pattern forming along her arms, a faint, glowing lattice that hadn't been there before. Kyle rose as well, watching her silently. She extended her hand without speaking. When he took it, his breath caught. A wave of sensation rolled through him, warm and sharp, electric without pain. Her skin no longer felt cold but alive with a charge that mirrored his own. The scanner beeped more urgently, readings climbing fast. "It's stronger now," she whispered. "Faster than before." He tightened his grip. "The energy transfer is intensifying." Her eyes searched his face. "Because of proximity? Or something else?" "I don't know," Cale admitted. "But I think we're not just stabilizing each other. We're sinking." She stepped closer, and he didn't stop her. Their fingers intertwined, the heat and cold no longer in conflict, but dancing. The air between them shimmered faintly as the sensors on the wall went wild. The intercom crackled. "Subject response exceeding baseline. Reduce contact immediately," Dr. Jensen's voice instructed from the control room. Kyle didn't move. Neither did Virea. "I feel stable," she said clearly, as if daring them to interrupt. "For the first time in my life." Kyle gave a slow nod. "And I don't feel like I'm burning anymore." The silence that followed felt heavier than anything else in the room. Whatever had started with accidental contact had now become undeniable. Neither of them let go. The corridor outside the observation lab buzzed with tension. Kyle stood just beyond the sealed chamber, hands balled into fists, jaw locked. The glowing red warning on the panel read, "Isolation in progress," though he could still hear Virea's voice faintly through the reinforced wall. Inside, she answered questions with composed grace, seated beneath a ring of scanning lights. Dozens of wires ran from her arms to the monitors. The scientists hovered nearby, muttering to each other, their eyes focused on the numbers rather than the person. He hated it. Dr. Jensen approached him, tablet in hand, her mouth drawn in a tight line. "We've confirmed it now. Your contact causes a regenerative response at the molecular level. It's not just thermal. It's something deeper. There's a synchronized field between your cells and hers." Kale said nothing. She pressed her lips together. "Command has taken notice. A transmission from Earth Central arrived 30 minutes ago." He turned to face her fully. "What do they want?" Jensen hesitated. "To study both of you under secure protocols, separate facilities, more controlled conditions." "No, it's not your call, Kyle. It is if they think they can move her without consequences." The door behind him hissed open. 2 security officers stepped out, followed by a man in a crisp black uniform. His boots echoed against the floor like punctuation marks. Pale eyes, too calm. Lieutenant Greaves. Cale's chest tightened. Greaves represented Earth Central's Science Enforcement Division. If he was here, everything was about to go sideways. "Mr. Mercer," Greaves said smoothly, voice devoid of emotion. "Your presence is requested in Command Briefing Room 1. "Immediately. I'm not leaving her." Greaves offered a thin smile. "She'll be safe. For now." Kyle followed reluctantly, eyes lingering on the glass wall behind which Virea still sat. Her head turned slightly, and their eyes met for a split second before the doors closed between them. Inside the sterile meeting room, a large display lit up with Cale's personnel file. The image of his younger self stared back at him. A time before the incident, before the mutation, before isolation had become a way of survival. "You were classified as unstable post-Project Paya," Greaves began, taking a seat across the table. "Yet here you are, manifesting a unique bioresonance field capable of reversing alien cellular decay." Cale folded his arms, saying nothing. Greaves leaned forward. "Do you understand the implications of that? Healing, adaptation, compatibility across species. Do you grasp what that could mean in warfare?" "Colonization?" Cale's knuckles whitened. "She's not a test subject. She's an anomaly. She's a person." Greaves gave a slow blink. "Our interest is not personal. It's survival. Resources are finite. If the Valari have failed to adapt to solar systems, they'll need our help. And leverage favors the one holding the cure." "She's not leverage," Cale snapped. "You are," Greaves replied coldly. "And unless you cooperate, you'll be recalled. Your contract permits full medical reclamation if deemed necessary for Earth's interests. Kale stood abruptly. You'll have to force me. Greaves smiled again, thinner this time. That can be arranged. Kyle left the room with fire behind his eyes and ice in his veins. He moved faster than protocol allowed, ignoring the startled glances of technicians and researchers as he stalked toward the containment wing. Inside Varea's room, she stood at the far wall, hands pressed to the frosted glass. Her skin looked paler than before, the healing regression already visible along her forearms. She turned as he entered. They're planning to move me. His chest clenched. I know. Her expression was unreadable. Do you believe them? When they say I'll be safe? No, he answered honestly. They see what you are to them, not who you are. She stepped closer. Then we must leave. You've thought about escaping? I've been planning it since I saw the fear in their eyes. He exhaled, tension unspooling slightly. Tell me what you need. Your trust, she said quietly. Kale crossed the space between them and gently took her hand. The spark returned instantly, cells aligning, warmth flowing like recognition. Her breathing steadied, his heartbeat slowed. They'll try to separate us, he said. Then we move before they act. She reached into the folds of her garment and pulled out a small crystalline device, faintly pulsing with embedded circuitry. This will scramble their internal tracking systems for 6 minutes, enough to reach the hangar if we time it right. Kyle's brow lifted. Where did you get this? Not all Valari are diplomats, she answered, a subtle smile forming. He held her hand tighter. Then we leave tonight. The lights dimmed slightly, signaling shift change. In 12 hours, new guards would arrive, security patterns would reset, and their only window would open. Kyle pressed his forehead gently to hers, his voice barely audible. They don't understand what's between us. Her fingers curled around his. They don't need to. As they stood together in the quiet, surrounded by blinking monitors and watching walls, Kyle felt certainty settle in his bones. She wasn't just someone he had saved. She was the one thing that made his fire worth carrying. The maintenance corridor smelled of ozone and cold metal. Overhead lights flickered at intervals, casting elongated shadows as Kyle and Varea moved in silence, boots barely brushing the grated floor. The stolen technician badges clipped to their uniforms looked convincing. Enough from a distance, but Kale knew proximity sensors would override disguise within minutes. Their only real protection was speed. Varea stayed close, her cloak drawn tight, the hood hiding most of her features. Her silver eyes still glowed faintly beneath the fabric, sharp even in the dim corridor. She clutched the scrambling device. In her palm, fingers curled tight around it. The hangar loomed ahead, Dock 6, usually reserved for planetary survey vessels. Their target sat idling on the pad, its hatch open as if waiting for them. An automated maintenance routine kept it, unlocked during diagnostics. That window was nearly over. Kyle scanned the bay. 2 security drones patrolled the far side, slow but thorough. No human personnel in sight yet. He tilted his head toward the side access door. Varea nodded once. They moved together, synchronized, without needing words. The bond had strengthened since their last contact. Every step felt balanced, like their bodies knew how to keep each other aligned. Kale no longer second-guessed her proximity. The burn he once feared had become something stabilizing. Inside the ship, the lights flickered on in response to movement. Varea slid into the pilot's chair with ease, her hands moving across the control surface with practiced familiarity. Kyle took the co-pilot station, fingers hovering over unfamiliar systems. You know how to fly this thing? He asked, watching her reroute power feeds. Valari design is older than human engineering, she replied without looking up. Your systems are just more dramatic about it. A warning chime echoed through the vessel. Security lockdown initiating. Kyle cursed under his breath. They had less than 2 minutes to get off the platform, or the ship would be tethered by magnetic clamps. Varela hit the scramble key. Outside, the drones paused mid-pattern. The lights in the bay pulsed erratically, then flickered off completely, for a single heartbeat before returning. That heartbeat was enough. The ship's thrusters hummed to life. The clamps disengaged with a metallic groan. Kyle felt the subtle lift beneath them as the vessel detached from the dock and rose into open space. As Glacialis 9 fell away behind them, the stars spread like spilled silver across the viewport. Varela adjusted the trajectory toward a darkened section of charted space. No stations, no patrols, no Earth Central. Only silence. Only distance. They sat quietly for a while, the tension slowly unraveling from Kyle's shoulders. Varela removed her hood and let her hair fall loose. The cold inside the ship seemed to yield to the energy still circulating between them. He turned to face her. "We're really doing this." She met his gaze evenly. "There's no turning back now." He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. "Why did you trust me so easily?" Her answer came after a pause. "Because I didn't feel fear when you touched me. Not pain, not danger, just balance." Kyle ran a hand through his hair, staring at the console. "I've spent years being told I was a threat. I started believing it." Varela stood, crossing the narrow cockpit, until she stood directly in front of him. Without speaking, she reached down and took his hand, placing it against her stomach, where the fabric of her suit had thinned. Beneath his palm, the skin radiated steady warmth. Her warmth. "I am alive because of you," she said softly. He looked up at her, every carefully constructed wall inside him starting to crack. "And I feel stable because of you," he whispered. She drew his other hand to her chest, just over her heart. The beat was stronger now than before, pulsing against his skin like a melody only he could hear. His temperature rose slightly, but the heat no longer surged wildly. It flowed in measured rhythm, guided by her presence. "You are not a weapon," she said. "You are resonance. You just needed someone who knew how to listen." The air between them thickened. Neither moved away. When her lips touched his, it was not explosive. It was slow, curious, and warm in a way Cale hadn't known warmth could. There was no fear, no resistance. Their connection went deeper than touch. It hummed beneath the skin, in blood, in breath. She led him to the rear of the ship where the living quarters waited. The room was barely larger than a closet, but neither of them noticed. Kyle's fingertips traced the intricate patterns forming across her back, new latticework glowing faintly. Under the surface, her body, once cold and fragile, now radiated a gentle heat that matched his own. He felt something inside him calm. Years of tension, isolation, regret. They quieted beneath her touch. Her fingers explored the lines of heat beneath his skin, mapping the places where his condition had always made him pull away. She never flinched. The energy that passed between them in those moments wasn't violent or overwhelming. It was soothing, layered, alive. His breath slowed, her muscles relaxed. Their bodies adjusted like tuning forks brought into harmony. Afterward, she curled beside him beneath a thin thermal sheet, one hand resting over his heart. The glow from their skin dimmed gradually, settling into a soft shimmer that filled the room with a hush neither wanted to break. Kyle looked at the ceiling, voice husky. "What is happening to us?" Varela answered without hesitation. "We're evolving." He turned his head, meeting her eyes in the low light. "Together?" Her smile curved gently. "There is no other way." The navigation alert chimed softly from the cockpit. They would reach the neutral zone in 7 hours. After that, everything would change. But for now, they stayed like that, wrapped in warmth, in quiet, in discovery. Not running anymore. Becoming. 3. Starless border of neutral space opened before them like a curtain pulled back to reveal the unknown. Their vessel, still humming with residual energy from the last transfer, drifted toward a nameless moon orbiting a dim blue dwarf. Coordinates had been buried deep in Varaya's encoded transmission, a safe haven untouched by politics or patrols. For now, Kyle stood at the edge of the cockpit, his hand pressed against the curved viewport. Cold light bathed the chamber, filtering through radiation-diffusing panels. Behind him, Varaya adjusted the scan filters, calibrating them to match her newly evolving biology. Her skin no longer shimmered with icy stillness. Instead, an intricate network of glowing patterns pulsed gently across her limbs and neck, flowing like light-filled veins. She had changed. So had he. Neither of them mentioned the shift outright. Words were inadequate for something that deep. It was in the silence, the way they breathed in tandem, the way his temperature no longer surged unpredictably, and how her body absorbed it with effortless grace. "The calibration is complete," she said, fingers brushing against the panel. "The cellular resonance has stabilized." Kale turned toward her. "And you? How do you feel?" She looked up, silver eyes brighter than ever. "Whole." He stepped closer, reaching for her hand. The contact was familiar now, but never dull. A low hum echoed through their bond, steady, rhythmic, alive. No discomfort, no rejection, just continuity. "We should test the field radius," Kyle suggested. "If it can extend beyond just the two of us, maybe your people—" A blaring proximity alarm cut him off. Red lights bloomed across the console. "Unidentified vessel approaching," the computer reported. 3 minutes to visual range. Varaya's breath hitched. "They found us." Kale's jaw tightened. "Earth Central." She moved to the control deck, scanning incoming transmissions. Encrypted signal. Military grade. He stared at the screen. A single ship, smaller than a destroyer, but faster. That meant one thing: interception, not negotiation. "We can't outrun them," he said. "No," she replied, voice even. "But we don't have to." Kyle frowned. "What do you mean?" Varaya turned to him. "I think we are ready." He took a step forward. "For what?" "To show them," she said. "What we are." As the enemy ship locked visual contact, the comm system pinged. A voice filtered through. Cold, clipped, unmistakably human. "This is Commander Alric of Earth. Central. Power down your vessel and prepare for boarding. You are in violation of treaty protocol and subject to immediate retrieval." Kyle felt a rush of old instincts, anger, defiance, the urge to fight. But Varaya reached for his wrist, and he stilled. "Let me," she whispered. She walked to the center of the room, eyes closed, arms slightly raised. Kale followed, hands brushing hers, their palms meeting. The energy ignited between them, warm, bright, surging in waves. Light began to pool around their bodies, soft at first, then increasingly radiant. It wasn't heat alone. It was frequency. Harmony. A living field of motion and fusion. Their vessel's hull began to glow. From the intercepting ship's perspective, the small civilian shuttle suddenly became a beacon, a radiant sphere pulsing in the cold void. Scanners failed. Communications dropped. Shielding shorted out. Inside their craft, Kyle held her close, the energy flowing freely now, unrestricted, uncontained. It moved through skin, bone, thought. They had become one current. Varaya whispered something in her native language. The air shimmered. "I feel them," she said softly. Kyle nodded. "Then let them see." They stepped into the landing chamber. A viewing panel faced the approaching cruiser, its hull now visible across the distance. Military insignia gleamed under. "Navigation lights." Kale extended his hand toward the glass. Varaya mirrored the gesture beside him. A wave of their joint field extended outward. The enemy ship's shields buckled. Lights flickered. Not from attack, but from an energy saturation they couldn't understand. Inside the control room of the cruiser, scientists and officers scrambled. No weapon had been fired, yet their systems failed. Their target wasn't resisting, but transforming. Commander Alric's voice returned, this time shaken. "What is happening?" Kyle stepped closer to the panel. "Evolution." He closed the channel. The light around them dimmed slowly. The surge eased into a stable rhythm. Across the link, Kyle felt her heartbeat. Not frantic, not fearful. Just sure. Varaya exhaled. "We've proven it works." Kyle nodded. "You can survive in light." They saw it. Her gaze flicked toward the disabled cruiser. They cannot deny it now. Suddenly, her expression changed. "There's another signal, not Earth Central." She adjusted the receiver. A faint pulse came through, coded, ancient, Valari in origin. Kale watched her face shift. "It's a beacon," she said. "From my homeworld." His breath caught. "They called you?" "They called us." The ship altered course. They approached a distant planet hidden behind layers of nebula, a world cloaked in eternal frost. But the energy signature was unmistakable. Her people had been watching, waiting, praying for a solution. When they landed, no army greeted them, no ceremony. Just silence, and the slow approach of figures cloaked in shadow and light. Valari elders with hollow eyes stepped into view, their bodies trembling in the thin atmosphere. Skin flaked, limbs cracked with each movement. Varaya approached them without hesitation. Kyle followed. She extended her hand toward the closest elder. He hesitated, then touched her. Where their skin met, the glow bloomed once more. The elder gasped. His spine straightened, cracks closed. His eyes, once dim, sparked with sudden light. A ripple of astonishment swept through the others. She turned to Kale. "It's begun." They spent the next weeks in a quiet laboratory beneath the ice, replicating the field, calibrating the resonance. Varaya stood as living proof. Kyle served as the source. Together they taught the process. Together they saved a species. In time, Earth Central returned. This time not with threats, but requests. The science had become undeniable. They wanted understanding, knowledge, access. Kyle agreed, on one condition: never treat her like property again. The treaty was rewritten. A year passed. Kyle stood on a crystalline balcony, overlooking a city reborn beneath the auroras. Valari children played beneath filtered sunlight. Their skin glowed, not with frost, but warmth. Behind him, Varaya stepped. Into view, her body now a seamless blend of both energies. She placed her hand on his back, and he turned. "You still burn," she teased, "and you still freeze," he replied. Together, they balanced, and in each other, they became something. No one had planned salvation.